Hey, this is Lori Cundy. I'm one of the Mytra consultants. I've got a 37-year background in network communications, broadband, sales management, sales processes, and I really, really enjoy working with customers in that carrier space. And part of that reason is that in the carrier space today, we're facing all new challenges and obstacles that didn't exist a few years ago. For example, we all of our emerging technologies and those that have been emerging over the last year or two. So think AI, 5G, cybersecurity, quantum computing, needing access to quantum networks. All of those things are now anticipated by your end user as a tool that will impact their bottom line and increase their customer experience. So, as a wholesale carrier today, your salespeople have to be cognizant that your customers not only are looking for those, but are going to be looking to you for those. So, you need to start working those services and these emerging technologies into the mindset and into the conversations that your sales and biz dev folks have with any of your clients. Here at Mytra, we enjoy consulting on and process development and methods and procedures. As long as you've got processes in place that everybody agrees on, you can always go back and change them and update them and improve them as the world around us changes. So that's one of the things that we'll consult on is how to make everybody comfortable with the processes that we recommend putting in place. So part of what we like to consult on within Mytra is to determine if, in fact, you are working with the customer at all levels that you can be working with. It's one thing to be a provider of a wide area network to a client, but what could you also do in terms of increasing and making a positive experience for their customers? So your business development folks need to understand that they're not just looking for a new area to sell your product in, they're looking for new product lines, new service lines. Biz dev should be at the forefront of product development, with sales coming in the back way and saying, yep, this is the kind of thing our customer's asking for. And if it's an emerging technology, yeah, you might need to have some resources that are assigned to that. For example, cybersecurity, that's a different specialty. But if you don't have that, you're not going to be able to talk to the customers. And I spend a lot of time working with customers on their own processes and optimization and helping them determine what they can do to just make themselves a more efficient organization. So, for example, strategies to reduce customer churn oftentimes just come down to simply communicating with the customer all the time. Customers want to know that they're using the product or service you sold them to their own benefit. So, for example, if you've got an Ethernet network in place, run a report that shows how much they're utilizing each of their ports and send it to them once a month. They probably have people who can do that, but it's one of those things that gets lost in the shuffle, frankly. But if you can show a customer that they're today underutilized but growing, and tomorrow are going to blow past that port capacity, then what you've done is set yourself up for an upgrade to their backbone pricing. And if you can then go in and maintain a pricing strategy of selling more bandwidth, even if it is a reduced cost per meg or cost per gig, the idea is simply give them more bandwidth for the same price. Revenue you want, bandwidth you got. You're the provider. So let's figure out ways to use your network in place that already reaches customers to continue to give them more for their money, which in fact then reduces your churn. Another idea besides churn and that plays into your internal communications and ways that we can impact those internal communications is making sure that all of your internal organizations are singing from the same songbook when it comes to service downtime. Don't make your customers all call into the knock when there's a major fiber cut that's impacted dozens or hundreds of customers. Let your salespeople be your voice and let them know what's going on. Keep them in the loop. And as their services are restored, let them know that. Let them know if anything else goes wrong to call you back. The fact is the idea that somebody is sitting there from your organization who cares that they're having an outage goes a long way. And really, some of those key performance indicators to measure your own success have to be measured in things such as, have you reduced churn? Have you maintained or lowered your cost per meg while increasing your usage of those same meg and gigs? Have you communicated service downtimes to your customers? There are so many ways that Mytra can assist you in filling in gaps that allow you to simply have touch points with your customer. And a lot of those are just things that haven't been meshed into your organization before, but we certainly can put an eyeball on those and help you understand what you can do better. To talk to you about some of the industry trends and market insights that we're seeing in the network and broadband and carrier space. Part of the evolving industry and all of the piece parts of an evolving industry is simply based on new and emerging technologies. So any company that is a carrier and is providing services in the telecom space from a carrier to an end user, or from a carrier to another smaller carrier to an end user, you got to be ready for your customers to be interested in new technologies such as 5G, AI, cybersecurity, quantum computing, and the quantum networks that support them. And you at least have to start having those conversations, because pretty soon those are going to be the things that become most important. And so many of our industry surveys show that AI, top of concern, cybersecurity, top concern. To that end, I think we're going to see continual private equity investment, although my guess is that what we're going to see is an equity investor who wants a telecom company to be expanding in terms of their plant in the ground and their service structure that rides on it. So private equity, not only is it going to support a build out of additional fiber to cover new areas, but it's also going to cover fibers that support new technologies in those new existing areas. Services as a carrier, you've got to be ready to have those conversations with the client, and Mytra can help you draft those types of questions that are going to help your sales and biz dev people understand what goes on at the client level. Also, another trend is going to be BEAD program and any other federal grants. What we're seeing is that we keep thinking we're almost to the point where we can get broadband, true broadband, all over the country. Then we find these pockets where there's never been fiber going through. They're reliant on satellite technologies, which are always going to be slower than our fiber. And the grant application process should be continuing to identify these areas. Let Mytra help you with your grant writing itself, and let us help dissect any of the information that you may have paid for. When you look at a fiber partner, think of one that not only has some fiber in the ground, but also has the know-how to build between and among data centers and enterprises who will have dual, if not more, sometimes triple and quadruple entry into data centers. Use the fiber that's in place today because it will keep your costs down, but be ready to use that fiber and build to new places wherever you're finding the demands. If you're working with wholesale fiber agreements and you want us to look at those from a consulting perspective, we're going to be looking at those from a long-term perspective and trying to determine if the wholesale fiber agreement that you're contracting with works for you today, but also tomorrow. Negotiating a fiber lease, don't make the mistake of wondering if it's going to work for you full time. So you negotiate a very short term lease, and then 3 years you're into negotiating it again when the basis of communications is the fiber asset. Those should be long term leases, and the last thing you think about. Of course, you've got fiber in the ground. The question is, how do you use it, not whether or not it's there. One of the things to consider is that when your salespeople come in, first and foremost, they're going to need to have some on-the-job training, which obviously is going to include some book smarts and some classroom training, but you need to also let them get out there in the field. Have them one-on-one for a few days or a week with an outside plant guy or a field engineer. Have them ask all the questions about what it means to those outside people for the salespeople to do their jobs well. It makes for a better organization when all of your departments that touch customers are also talking to and touching each other. You need to know that your sales ops folks have your back when it comes to keeping the network up. You need to know your outside plant guys are building the network as per the spec you sold it. And all of that requires communications. In terms of that communication, it's one of the keys to building long-term relationships. When you start off in sales, your word is your brand. How you talk to your customers and deal with them is your brand. And we'll help you arrange your own CRM so that you've got regular touch points with customers. So things like pulling their utilization reports, making sure that SLA credits hit by somebody looking at the bill, just touching them all the time for any reason you can, and opening that door for the next conversation about emerging technologies. And here at Mytra, we'll consult on all of that. Another thing that I particularly enjoy consulting on at Mytra is any kind of a grant application and then follow up. Our federal government has grants that are out there and available. Lots of folks are bidding on them. I've been through that in a previous life working for Zayo. We had a grant that allowed us to build over 600 miles of fiber to some college campuses. So the federal government, when they give out this grant money, they want to see that it impacts not just homes passed and new fiber to the home, but also those community anchor institutions that also can take advantage of it and also then have an impact on their own communities. Another thing we really like to consult on at Mytra is your service delivery processes themselves. So what happens when the customer says yes? My opinion is you use the old OSI model and you start at the bottom. If there isn't fiber in the ground, there's no reason to talk about Ethernet frames, and there's no reason to talk about IP packets until the Ethernet frames have been squared away. So use that model, and let's build an absolute step-by-step way of delivering the services that are sold. And again, it's a step-by-step mannerism that everybody in the company agrees is being taken. That's the way we like to do things at Mytra. We'd love to do business with you.